like saying defund the police. Is that just busting the whole thing?
She got money from DTE. What the hell is she talking about? Arguably, you have to be a little insane. Nowadays, in 2026, I think this is a negative if you have all this money funding your campaign versus Abdul, who has no corporate PAC donors. Meanwhile, Haley Stevens from APAC has gotten over $50 million. $50 million. Look at this graphic and tell me which person is probably less corrupt, less influenced.
Former Wayne County Health Director Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed and Congresswoman Haley Stevens.
Grateful to be here. My name is Abdul Al-Sayed. I'm a doctor. I became a doctor because I go 15 minutes from where I grew up and travel a difference of 10 years difference in life expectancy. Instead of practicing clinically, I went into public health, rebuilt Detroit's health department, led Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services. We did things like put glasses on kids, took on corporate polluters, made sure that our kids weren't breathing the worst coming out of smokestacks, and eliminated medical debt. But I'm running because it just shouldn't be this hard. I've been down to 10 different cities, 475 public events. I could go to a living room in Lansing. I could be in a church in Detroit. No matter where I go, people tell me, I need to be able to afford my groceries. I need to be able to afford my gas. I need to be able to see a doctor when I get sick. My friend is going to frame this race about me and her. It's not about that. It's about you. It's about what you deserve. It's about you deserving a politics that's not bought off by the same corporations picking your pocket at every single turn. I'm looking forward to the conversation about how we get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, and pass Medicare for all.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed. Next up, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, you have 1 minute for your opening statement tonight.
Well, thank you to everyone tuning in tonight. As we know, the stakes of this race couldn't be higher. Costs continue to go up. Our health care, voting rights, civil rights, it's all on the line, in addition to Social Security and Medicare. And if Mike Rogers...
Where they disagree on things, obviously like Palestine and Gaza, Israel, is where Abdul can separate himself. That's where this debate can get interesting. Otherwise, this is just like, yeah, I'm going to make things affordable. Yeah, I'm going to make things affordable. Yeah, I'm going to fight Donald Trump. Yeah, I'm going to fight Donald Trump. Let's talk about the things that we disagree on.
Wins this race, all goes by the wayside. Look, Michigan deserves a senator who can win and who can deliver. I'm the only one on the stage who has flipped a Republican seat, and I was named Michigan's most effective Democratic lawmaker in Congress because my only focus is you. Abdul is running for celebrity. Republicans are propping up his campaign. And Mike Rogers just the other day said in a secret phone call that he makes it easier for him to win, that he's the one he wants to run against. Look, this isn't about the D.C. or New York influencer crowd. This is about putting Michigan first, and I've got the receipts to do that. D.C. or New York influencer crowd. This is about putting Michigan first, and
She's just mad that Abdul is popular. What type of criticism is that? Kind of the entire point is you need to be very popular to win.
I've got the receipts to do that, which is why Governor Whitmer and so many others are joining my campaign to win.
So when Whitmer greenlit a data center in Saline, Michigan that they did not want, that they voted no against, that same governor who is just selling out to corporate America at this point, Sam Altman, OpenAI, that's the same governor that you're trying to flex with. That is just, it's just so out of touch.
Influencer crowd. This is about putting Michigan first, and I've got the receipts to do that, which is why Governor Whitmer and so many others are joining my campaign to win in November.
For me, Dr. Al-Sayed, what are you doing that's something that perhaps we haven't heard before in Washington that's different to keep the cost of living down?
So let me just tell you, for me, it's I don't take money from the corporations who are jacking up your prices in the first place. When you're bought off by DTE and Blue Cross and Big Pharma and Big Tech and APAC, don't be surprised that there's a pro quo that comes with that quid. That money doesn't just fall off trees. $60 million from outside organizations in this race. They just come from nowhere. It's because those exact same organizations expect something on the other side, and that's that they get to expect to own your next U.S. senator. So it's
hey, I don't take money from corporate America, from corporate PACs. It's like, that's, yeah, you can't argue against that. Can't argue against that. He's basically saying, I'm not bought off, so I can do things that other people can't. Completely valid.
So it starts with being able to say, I'm the only candidate in this race who doesn't take any money from corporations. Never have, never will. And then from there, I actually can stand up to them. I can do things like enforce our antitrust policies that haven't been enforced. I can do things like tax billionaires their wealth so we can take that money and invest it in you and your kids, in your schools. I can do things like make sure that rather than sending your money somewhere else to drop bombs on other people and their kids, we can keep that money here at home. And just in case you don't believe me, just think about this. Just last week, our friend here voted to send $3.3 billion of your tax dollars to a foreign government. That is the pro quo that comes with the quid of $30 million spent by APAC. So it really comes down to how are you funded.
Dr. Al-Sayed, thank you. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, we heard a lot from Dr. Al-Sayed. Some of that was about your record in Washington. I want you to be able to address that, but also tell us what you would do to keep the cost of living down.
Yeah, our affordability crisis is choking us out here in Michigan. You know, everywhere I go, if it's at the fish fry in downtown Detroit, or the working single mom who just the other day told me her healthcare costs continue to go up, that the grocery bill is only getting harder. We don't need lip service. We need action. And Abdul's going to talk about where employees from certain corporations are spending their money, but let me tell you about what I am doing. Because DTE and our utility companies are selling out their ratepayers, and I'm giving them an option. I'm saying DTE, either stop raising rates or lose your federal funds. And
She got money from DTE. What the hell is she talking about?
out their ratepayers, and I'm giving them an option. I'm saying DTE, either stop raising rates or lose your federal funds and cut executive pay. Look, we
Okay. Stop doing what you're doing, or I might stop giving you money.
need proven fighters in these positions, and that is what I have done time and time again. I've got the receipts to show it, and this is also why Governor Whitmer and AG Nessel, you know, two proven fighters who want to see results, have endorsed me in this race, because Michigan, it needs a workhorse in the United States Senate, sleeves rolled up, ready to tackle our problems on day one.
She thinks she's a football coach or something. We gotta roll our sleeves up and tie our cleats up and go in there and smack them in the mouth. Who is telling her to like say these things? This is what I mean by like, this is like 2010 or like 2005 like politics. I don't really think this connects with any young voters. Maybe boomers who like this type of politics, they like this type of rhetoric, but I don't know any young people that actually like want to hear that from their politicians. They don't want to hear Coach talk from Bart Simpson about how hard she's going to run through a wall for Michiganders.
And I'm not just stopping there. Let's lower the cost of groceries with my bill, no tariffs on groceries.
I just find it hilarious when people say, yeah, we need to lower the prices of groceries, gas, whatever. Yeah, no shit. Like that should be like the most based political view on the left. Like we shouldn't even have to say that. Obviously you want to make things cheaper. Who's gonna disagree with that, right? Unless you're Trump, who's like, oh yeah, I like inflation. Inflation's good.
Ask us, are these folks getting money from big utility?
Fact check, how much money did Stevens get from DTE? DTE Energy records show DTE PAC contributed $45,000 to Stevens in the past, including $2,500 she transferred to her Senate campaign in 2025.
I have been transparent throughout this campaign, and let me just say this, that the only thing that ever motivates my work is the people of Michigan, the people who I hear from. You know, my opponent is on these big podcasts. You know, he's running a podcast himself. These folks are making fun of the way I sound, but yet I sound like the people who need help,
because she is just lying to the people of Michigan. I think that's fucked up. That should make her unelectable, and arguably you have to be a little insane to lie when you can just literally Google things and debunk lies in real time.
Thank you. Dr. El-Sayed, I'm asking you the same question. Any money from anyone you don't know about?
No and never, but then $40,000 in direct receipts to her campaign from DTE's corporate PAC. And then there's, I don't know, Center for Democratic Priorities, which released its funders, but then they're behind these shell organizations, these 501c4s. So I'd really like to revisit that question, because I don't know how to explain $40,000 directly to her campaign from DTE. I'm the only candidate in this race who's never touched a dime of corporate PAC money.
I do want to ask you, and we'll dive right into that right now. You've heard many people ask the question about AIPAC, and it seems as though on many instances you haven't directly answered the question. Do you see why some people are bothered by the fact that so much money, $40+ million, has come from AIPAC?
This moment in this country and here in Michigan, people have every right to be frustrated about our campaign finance system. My opponent here on this stage, Abdul, he's got a super PAC that his father-in-law funds that has millions of dollars going into it. And look, in terms of foreign policy, you know, Abdul and I do differ. I believe in a two-state solution. He has attacked me by name for purporting that the people of Palestine and the people of Israel deserve to live side by side peacefully. The goal is always long-term peace. And also, the Prime Minister of Israel has attacked me by name. They both represent the extremes. Look, Michiganders want peace. They deserve to see peace, and that is where I have always cast my vote, and that is the work that I want to do for Michigan and the U.S. Senate.
Specifically about AIPAC money, more than $46 million has been spent on AIPAC spending to back your campaign. A lot of people wonder if that is something where you're going to do their bidding should you win this seat. Is that something people should be concerned about? And if not, why not?
Absolutely not, Roop. Look, I have been very clear, consistent, and transparent, and I have continued to be. I want to see long-term peace. I want to see a two-state solution. I am deeply proud to represent one of the largest Jewish populations in.
I will stop being mean to her when she actually criticizes Israel and says stop committing genocide in Gaza. That's when I'll stop making fun of her. I have yet to hear her say that. I've just heard she supports the people of Palestine. What does that mean?
A congressional district in the country. This is a community solution. I am deeply proud to represent one of the largest Jewish populations in a congressional district in the country. This is a community that I have grieved alongside, that I've mourned alongside, and have fought to bring the hostages home. And I'm still working to get us to long-term peace.
But no
The
concern about the
hostages are home.
$46 million plus spent on
The hostages are home. They've been home. And they actually could have returned home. I think it was within the first year of the war, but Israel didn't want to do it. Hamas was like, yeah, you can have all the hostages back. Here you go. And Israel didn't want to do it.
perhaps you doing their bidding should you win the seat.
Well, I don't think there's much difference between super PACs going in for Abdul or super PACs going in for me.
No major billion-dollar corporation has donated him any money. And that right there is the biggest green flag outside of calling out Israel for the genocide in Gaza. That's probably the next best thing that you could do, in my opinion, if you're running for office.
In this country, I have an A grading from End Citizens United. I'm endorsed by Defend the Vote. I have voted consistently, and I'm going to stop Mike Rogers from getting anywhere close to the United States Senate, which is why he doesn't want to run against me, and which is why somebody like Governor Whitmer is supporting me in this race.
Congresswoman Stevens, thank you. I want to give some equal time here to Dr. El Sayed, and specifically, I want to talk to you a little bit about this geopolitical weight that we all feel in this community, which is about the Israel-Palestine issue. It obviously has colored this election greatly. It colors the Democratic Party. How do you see yourself moving forward, should you become a senator here, handling the situation with Iran, Israel, and Hamas?
So I just want to say the difference between us is $46 million of AIPAC spending. They've set a record in this race to help elect my opponent because they know that she'll be a reliable vote, just like she took last week to send your tax dollars to a foreign government that is aiding, arming, and abetting the very people who want to foreclose on the possibility of Palestinian self-determination. Look, at the end of the day, my job is to take care of you here. I want to be your U.S. senator. I want your tax dollars spent in Michigan to provide schools in Michigan, to build healthcare in Michigan, to build roads in Michigan. And I think that money sent over there to kill kids and women is the worst use of our tax dollars. And yet, that's exactly what $46 million in spending will buy you. And I believe deeply that we have a responsibility to make sure that we don't make other people's problems worse. So I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis alike. I believe that we should not be fighting stupid wars that AIPAC wants us to fight in the first place. And I believe we have a responsibility to keep our money here, to invest here. That really is the difference. We're being outspent in this race 12-1. Chances are you're going to see an ad, probably 2 of them, on behalf of AIPAC for my opponent in the next commercial break. That's what that buys you, lying about a record around President Obama's endorsement or lying about me and my character. But that's exactly what happens when you stand up and say, maybe Palestinians should have rights too, and maybe we should have rights.
That's another funny thing is the way she talks about Obama is like, gives you the impression that Obama like endorsed her. Obama has not endorsed her. Kamala has not endorsed her. Biden has not endorsed her. She used to work for Obama, like I said, nearly 20 years ago. Okay, I think it was in like 2008 or 2009. And then, yeah, there's like attack ads that Abdul is anti-Semitic and that he's a sexist. So it's just all bullshit. All bullshit AIPAC shit.
To our tax dollars here.
Dr. El Sayed, I'm going to give Congresswoman a chance to respond as you made a couple of accusations there about her record. Go ahead, Congresswoman.
Well, as I said, I have been transparent, and that is why I have released my full tax returns, and Abdul still hasn't. We need to ask him, what's he hiding? What are the Republicans going to uncover?
He has. There's a process of it getting approved and being released, and that's what we're waiting on. So I don't know what the hell she's going to say when it comes out, but
the general election that they will use against him. I am the only non-millionaire in this race. I have been recognized as an effective Democratic lawmaker who, yes, turns in a clear, consistent way on complex challenges. I am beholden to the people of Michigan, the people who I hear from when I am in the grocery store line, people who've broken down in tears, asking me how we can address this affordability crisis. And that is what I am doing. That is what I will do on day one. And I have the receipts to prove it. Dana Nessel agrees with me.
Dr. El Sayed, I do want to ask you a question about the tone and the tenor of this campaign. It is safe to say that everyone from Washington to Washington Township in Michigan are sick and tired of people pointing fingers, screaming, yelling, and insulting one another. We've seen a lot of that all across the country. Just earlier this week, we heard that there was some kind of a Zoom call in which you had referenced an opponent as ogre on a pike. And so many people took offense to that. And it really pointed to the bigger question about the tone and tenor that you've been accused of having in this campaign. Do you regret any of the comments that you've made? And do you think that this race could take a more productive and a more substantive tone if we kept those personal slams out?
Look, I took to Twitter last week and said that the tone in which people talk about my opponent is unkind. And I asked anybody who supported me to not talk about her that way. In fact, when she got booed on this.
Respectfully, Abdul, she's a sellout to the Israeli government who's committing a genocide. I feel like we have every right, and we should be making fun of her for that. Like, Abdul, she's not your friend. She's not on the same side as you.
Stage at the Michigan Democratic Party convention, I called her personally and said that that was unkind. My supporters had nothing to do with it, but I don't think that that's the way we want to do politics. I was referring to a guy named John Fetterman, who's a senator from Pennsylvania, who has done terrible things, got elected on a set of values, and is now completely throwing those values in the mud. And I do
Yeah, John Fetterman, just another Zionist freak that somehow got elected.
I think it's important for any senator in Michigan to have a relationship with folks who are in the U.S. Senate. And if those folks are not actually acting in accordance with what they got elected on, I think it's important for all of us to have an honest opinion about what we're going to do to make sure that our Senate looks like the people it represents. But when we talk about unkindness, I also just want to speak to the fact that on behalf of my opponent, UDP, another name for AIPAC, has been running attack ad after attack ad after attack ad on my character. I'm the father of 2 daughters. I'm raising them to be stronger than any man. My wife is a doctor. My mother was the first tenured professor of engineering at her university. I was raised by strong women. To say that somehow, because I wrote an op-ed 15 years ago about First Lady Michelle Obama, or I ran against Governor Whitmer, that somehow I'm disrespecting anybody is just inconsistent with the truth.
To be transparent about what is being said here. And look, Abdul's a great guy. He's a great father. Only he can account for saying that, Whitmer's bought and paid for, or that, no one cares about Debbie Stabenow, or that Mallory McMorrow isn't smart enough. That is certainly on him to respond.
Yeah, I mean, you just name dropped all those people. Only Whitmer is somebody that probably the average person in Michigan would know is Whitmer. So, yeah.
Which we certainly just did hear from him on that.
Dr. I'll say that you have a quick minute.
Look, I told you at the outset that my opponent was going to make this race about me and her. But this is about you. This is about whether or not you deserve a politics of the people, by the people, and for the people, or of the corporations, by the billionaires, and for the special interests. In an effort to talk about civility, I just took another attack. And I just want you to ask yourself, what is it that you deserve from your politics now? Do you deserve a politician more focused on their opponent because they want to be in a seat? Or do you deserve a politics where we're all asking, how do we actually serve?
And what's crazy is, I feel like Abdul isn't even being mean. He's not even being as mean as he could be. But he's not. All he's saying is you're bought out by corporations, and she is. That's a fact. He could be way more mean than what he is being right now.
You best, because that's what I'm focused on here in this debate and been focused on for this entire 15-month campaign that we've been running on.
Well, and thank you for clarifying that you didn't call me an ogre.
As compared to neighboring states, Michigan consistently ranks among one of the worst for power reliability and rate affordability. As hotter summers and severe storms strain our
We're also one of the worst in education, too.
Infrastructure, what federal policies or grid investment standards will you champion to ensure Michigan residents get reliable, affordable power?
We'll begin with Congresswoman Haley Stevens for an answer.
I'm going to tell DTE to lower their prices. That's literally what she's going to say. I'm going to fight hard for Michiganders.
I am not offering lip service to this issue. I'm offering a solution, which is to say to these companies, either lower the rates or lose your federal funds. Look,
you've got DTE, which is the biggest spender in our entire politics. They spend on 93% of the entire elected state legislature, as well as most of our congresspeople, including my colleague here. And that allows them to get away with things like building one of the largest hyperscale data centers in our state in ex parte approval. Now, that's fancy terms for saying approval without actually going through the normal process. And this is going to increase the load on our grid by more than twice. Now, we just lost our power for 5 days in a row because of a mid-level storm. We need to do a lot better. To me, it's about transparency in policymaking. People should not be able to take that money and then turn the other cheek and then allow for these approval processes that aren't approval processes at all. I still have yet to see a plan from DTE about how they're going to improve our reliability while doubling, more so, the amount of electricity they're expected to provide for a data center that nobody asked for. I put out a terms of engagement because these data centers, that was one of 15 that proposed last year alone. We need to be serious about the incoming threat that's going to make all of this so much worse.
The Democratic Socialists of America have not made an endorsement in this particular race. Many people call you progressive. Some have accused you of being a socialist. Not that that's a bad word, but people have said that about you. Where do you stand on your politics? How would you describe your politics?
Roop, I'm a doctor and a scientist. I want policy solutions that actually map to the problems that we face. My governing experience is rebuilding a health department in the city of Detroit. When kids couldn't get glasses, 30% of them would get tested positive for needing glasses and wouldn't get a pair. We put optometrists on vans outside of schools so that as soon as a kid got a positive test, they go out, get a full optometric exam, and get a pair of glasses delivered within 2 weeks of a vision test. When it comes to the question of socialism, I'm not a socialist. I'm just a capitalist who understands how capitalism works. The biggest threat to capitalism was never the idea of government regulation. It was always monopoly. I want you to think about the stuff that you have to buy, whether it's your groceries and the number of stores you can go to.
I don't know, Abdul. I don't believe that at all. I think he's just saying that to win this election. I don't believe he's a capitalist for 1 second. I think he's just saying that so that he can have a shot at winning this election. As soon as he says he's a socialist, that is when he loses a lot of those like centrist Democrat voters that are maybe trying to figure out who to vote for right now, Haley Stevens or Abdul. And if he claims he's a socialist, you will lose some of those Democrats. Yeah, he has to play it very safely at this point.
It's buying a flight to see your grandmother, or it's picking a phone or a phone provider. You have like 2 or 3 options, and that shouldn't be legal, but that's the way our economy works right now. So I think government ought to be there to regulate on monopolies and oligopolies so that everybody can actually participate in an economy without having to be forced to pay more or get paid less for the work they do.
Because I'm going to tell you what kind of politician I am. I am Michigan's manufacturing geek, okay? I have visited hundreds of small to mid-sized manufacturing shop floors. I have operated CNC machines in my life previous to being in elected office. I have a deep passion for the bread and butter of our state and a unique understanding.
Not the bread and butter, the meat and potatoes, the bread and butter of this state. Let's fucking go.
Donald Trump and Mike Rogers go to lick the bootstraps of China and start a trade war with Canada, screwing us over and selling us down the river, I will be standing up for us and securing things like what I did with the CHIPS and Science Act to deliver for our youth and equity and inclusion that is so very important to our future. Jobs for everyone, lower costs, and yeah, stop these abuses of power that are coming down from Trump and Rogers, who are treating it like the stock trading floor.
Congresswoman Haley.
I think we need to ban stock buybacks. This is this process by which corporations will literally buy their own stock to artificially raise their stock price, taking money away from the future of R&D and the
yeah, how the hell is that legal? But speaking on that, ban all stock trading from anybody in federal or state office. That is the most corrupt thing you could possibly do. Other than what Donald Trump is doing, which he's selling his tweets and his Truth Social posts so that they can get ahead of the stock market and ahead of the news. It is the most insane shit. On top of the teleprompter operator betting on what would be said in the Trump speech on Cauchy. Like, I could go on and on about corruption with Donald Trump, but
I actually think that there's a pathway. Unlike the stupid tariffs of Donald Trump, which is around-the-clock tariffs for everyone, I think that there's a place for targeted tariffs. If you think about free trade like cancer, I think we need some chemo. And the way that that would work is that they were transparent, specific, directed to particular product lines. And then number 3, I think we need to massively invest in continuing to be the best place to make an internal combustion engine in the world, and also to invest in EVs and EV infrastructure. And I want to talk about what I mean by that. I don't believe in a mandate, but what I do believe is that you should be able to buy a $25,000, 300-mile range car brought to you by the big 3. Why? Because that's the way that we're going to be able to create a product line that can compete all over the world with the kinds of cars that China is now manufacturing and eating our lunch on. But that means we have to invest in workers. And
when gas where I'm at is $4.20, it kind of makes electric vehicles a little more appealing. But yeah, you know who probably loves the Iran war right now? Elon Musk.
Really is the most important piece here. The UAW has built the American automotive industry. We need to be invested in them. We need to make sure that we continue to have the best manufacturing and engineering talent in the world. And that means ending the restriction that we've seen, and it means investing.
I'm not gonna lie, I wish you would talk more about public transportation rather than electric vehicles and cars. Like, you know what would change the city of Detroit and the Detroit area would be a subway system or just a ton of more buses. How cool would it be if you had a system that went from like Ann Arbor to Detroit to Flint?
Mostly in downriver that are out of work right now. You know, Mike Rogers wants to rubber stamp all this.
Mike Rogers.
Mike Rogers wants to rubber stamp all of this. The stakes couldn't be higher. November is 50.
She really does sound like Marge. Oh my God. She does sound like Marge Simpson. Mike Rogers. Bart.
50-50. He said on the leaked call he wants to run against Abdul. He knows that I passed bipartisan wins for role in the Obama administration when our big 3 was on the line, particularly General Motors and Chrysler and hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs across our state. That was a long time ago, but it was policy that worked. We cannot take for granted that this incredible state of ours, Michigan, is just one of a handful left in the country whose central economy, all the jobs, drive-through manufacturing. I'm going to be the champion for that.
That you need 60 votes to pass something when it really should just be the majority number of votes. I oppose the filibuster. I think the filibuster has been anti-democratic for a lot of reasons. And once you get past that, we have the opportunity to get money out of politics to take on Citizens United. We have the opportunity to put money back in pockets by doing things like passing the PRO Act to stand with unions like the UAW who've endorsed us. We have the opportunity to start changing and enforcing our antitrust policies so a few corporations can't pick your pocket at every turn. We have the opportunity to tax billionaires their wealth, and we have the opportunity to finally guarantee every single person in this country health care through through Medicare for all. But we've got to get the democracy part of it right. And right now, the biggest risks to our democracy are the filibuster, it's anti-democratic at the Senate, and money in politics. The attack ads that you've seen, probably in the last commercial break itself, that change our political system. When you ask $60 million to come into a race for you and then say that somehow you're electable, I think you don't quite understand what electability means. If you need a $60 million crutch, you probably can't be elected on your own terms. So I would just say that you should probably, if you really want to beat Mike Rogers, find the candidate who is electable without having to ask for a $60 million crutch to do it.
Congresswoman?
Well, look, you talk about the senators. They are really missing as what we need here in Michigan. You know, an understanding of what makes our
knows he
state
cooked, too.
tick.
Look at him.
You know,
Look at
go
him.
and visit a small business. Go and talk to a black-owned business. You know, I know it's great to host rallies and have these fun events, but everywhere I have gone in Michigan, I have taken the time
Is she
to
really
visit
going to
a
do this?
minority-owned.
Is she really going to do the thing that Republicans always criticize Democrats about, which is like virtue signaling and playing the race card and calling people racist? Like, she's really going to play that right now. She's going to say, Abdul, you don't go to black businesses. You don't know what it's like for a black business. How many black businesses have you been to in the last month? That's what happens when you're cornered and you don't have much else to say. He doesn't understand the black voters. This is what I mean by she is a centrist Democrat, corporate centrist Democrat. Not very far off from a Republican, in my opinion.
Business. I want to see my bill that would take an investment capital structure into black-owned businesses. So things like what we have on the Avenue of Fashion, which is a national best practice, that we can do that in Saginaw and Muskegon and Lansing. There's so much great economic development happening here, but our tax code.
What's funny as well is Grand Rapids is the second largest city in this state, and they never mentioned Grand Rapids. Never. Are they going to mention Grand Rapids at all in this debate? They love to mention Lansing. They love to mention Detroit. Obviously, Detroit makes sense. Like I said, Grand Rapids is the second biggest city in the state.
And our tax dollars aren't working for us, which is why I have staked such a big part of my campaign on hope and equity so that every zip code gets equal investment. I have fought to bring these dollars into Pontiac, and I'm darn proud of it. You know, for the bridge and for youth recreation, we need to continue to do that across the state. And the people who aren't from here, who are so eager to campaign here, they should really come and spend some time with the residents and the people who I'm hearing from each and every single day. Look, there's a lot to be proud of for Michigan, but there is so much we could be doing to do more for folks.
That was an interesting point. Nobody came up here to campaign for Haley Stevens. Nobody. And you want to know who came up here to campaign with Abdul? Bernie Sanders and AOC. So I don't know. What does that tell you about how Democrats feel about Haley Stevens in the grand scheme of things? Nobody came up here to help her out. Kamala didn't come up here. Gavin Newsom didn't come up here. AOC did not come up here. For her, JB Pritzker, like anybody that you could name that is a presidential candidate has not come up here to help Haley Stevens run a campaign with her. But like I said, Bernie Sanders and AOC did and joined Abdul on the campaign trail. And I think that means a lot. That means a lot. Bernie still has so much pull in this government, in this country. I don't know if he's running for president again, but I think AOC is. And I think Bernie is going to help her try to win the primary this time, even though the DNC completely fucked Bernie in 2016.
I believe
Dr.
your question. I just want to make sure that the viewer had their question answered, because I think it was about what was going wrong in the Senate, and we got this conversation about why senators should come visit, which is actually exactly what they just did. But I just also want to just be clear about this, that at the end of the day, yes, you should go to small businesses. That's actually what we've done. We've also gone to 475 public events where we actually took questions from an audience rather than these baked and polished, made for a camera events that too often is the way that my friend has campaigned.
Yeah, I mean, to his point, I went to the Bernie Sanders Abdul rally in Grand Rapids. I was late, didn't make it in. They were at capacity of about 3,000 to 3,500. I didn't get in. They had a side room for all the people that didn't get in. And they gave a mini, like 5 to 10 minute speech just for us in that side room. I made a video about it on my channel, which I actually kind of enjoyed more than if I went to the main rally, I think, because like I said, they were about 20 to 30 feet from me. And there was about, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100 people in this room. And it just felt way more intimate. It felt way more personal. And if I felt like they actually cared about the people in that room, or else they wouldn't have even done that, right? And I think that goes a long ways for getting elected is, do the people actually feel that you're genuine, that you actually care about them, that you're not just saying shit?
And so, look, we do bring people in because we want to actually introduce them to Michiganders. And wouldn't it be better if one of our senators went to the Senate with colleagues ready to work with them on day one?
Well, I do want to ask you both about contrasting something that I think is really important right now. When we talk about ICE, this is something that obviously has seemed to kind of calm down a bit, but it's still fundamentally important to everyone who's watching right now. Congresswoman Stevens, where do you stand on ICE and the funding for ICE and where things...
I actually don't know her stance on ICE. I think she's just said that she wants ICE to get out and that they're out of control or something.
should be going?
And she went to the ICE facility and somebody reported that she was like impressed by the guards and how much control they had over the prisoners and everything.
Well, I am leading the charge in the Congress right now to redirect $70 billion of your tax money, Michiganders' taxpayer money, that went to ICE at the expense of your health care, at the expense of food benefits, all things that I am hearing from Michiganders where they are experiencing pain points. We've got to redirect that $70 billion back into communities. I called for Kristi Noem to go. She was fired. But guess what? No reforms. Not a penny more for this rogue agency Michigan deserves. Look, my opponent here, Abdul, he is such a talented guy. He's written 3 books. He's had 300 podcasts. You know, he's had all this attention. But the deal is we don't need a celebrity candidate. We don't need a celebrity senator.
You already
we
said
need
that.
somebody
You already said
who is
that.
committed to 6 years of hard, unglamorous work.
Mr. El-Sayed, you heard Congresswoman Stevens there say, essentially, strip away some of the funding for ICE. Is that not good enough?
Well, she's also voted to raise ICE funding 4 times. That's the part that you didn't hear. 4 times voted to raise ICE funding. Voted to thank ICE, in fact. So this is the same kind of DC hypocrisy, I hate to say it, that we
She's just a fucking corrupt liar. Fact check in real time.
often see. Say one thing in front of a camera, do another thing. I said that we need to abolish ICE. ICE is not about immigration. ICE is not about the southern border. We can have a safe and secure southern border. We can also enforce immigration policy. But ICE is not about that. ICE is about normalizing paramilitary force on our streets. And I just want to push back on
Yep, abolish it if you really feel like you need that type of agency. You have to abolish it, and you have to cut it, fire everybody, prosecute people that need to be prosecuted.
the idea that it's calmed down. I mean, I was just in Genesee County this weekend, and you had raids in Saginaw. People are scared to death, and we've got a congresswoman who tells you that she's against ICE, has voted to raise ICE funding, voted to thank ICE, called the people who work in ICE, I don't know, very fine public servants and other things when she went and visited herself. So I'm just saying that I do the thing that I say I'm going to do. I don't think ICE needs to exist. For the better part of our country's history, we did not have an ICE one. And here's the last thing I just want to say about this. When it comes to the question of immigration, we need Democrats who are going to stand up and actually talk about the great good that immigration has done for our country in the first place. The idea that somehow we can't say abolish ICE because we're so afraid of what they're going to say when we've seen ICE terrorize people in our streets, to me, is exactly the kind of cowardice.
And the funny thing is, like, when you say abolish ICE, people are thinking, like, people react like you just said abolish the police. There should be no police on the streets. Like, we're talking about ICE. ICE is a completely different agency that's just for immigration, which I would argue we don't need. If there's an immigrant that is that dangerous that you need to break down their door or find them as they're going to work and kidnap them out of the hospital, if they're that dangerous that you need to go to a school, tear gas kids, call the SWAT, call the FBI, call the ATF, call the NSA. Like, there's so many other agencies that you could use to round up such dangerous immigrants. You know, there's so many dangerous immigrants out there, right? But yeah, you don't need a $80 billion agency who's, I think it was 90% of the people they are arresting have no violent criminal background.
So with both of you, isn't saying abolish ICE like saying defund the police? Is that just busting the whole thing open? Or do you believe that in order to have enforcement, you need to have an agency that knows how to do it?
I promise you, I did not pre-watch this.
Yeah, well, I just also ran government agencies. And I know that when a culture of impunity sets into a government agency, it becomes almost impossible to take out. And so I think the agency as it exists does not need to exist. That's not to say that we are not going to keep our streets secure. That's not to say that we're not going to enforce immigration policy. That's not to say we shouldn't have a safe, secure southern border.
How do you do it?
And it's not anywhere close to saying abolish the police, because the police do a completely different job. Completely different job. ICE is just for immigration.
That we are not going to keep our streets secure. That's not to say that we're not going to enforce immigration policy. That's not to say we shouldn't have a safe, secure southern border.
How do you do
it? The same way we did it for most of our history. We didn't have ICE. We had INS, and they were targeted. They obeyed the laws of this land. They didn't terrorize people in places like preschools and parking lots. They didn't run up in schools and churches. They understood that their job, yes, was to enforce immigration policy, but they did.
And I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it. Schools, hospitals, churches, airports should be off limits. Those places should be off limits. Very inhumane to get somebody at those places, to arrest somebody at those places. And immigration court, obviously. You're fucking over your own immigration process by arresting people outside of court, during court, or after court. If you do that, nobody's going to want to do the immigration process legally. Why would I, when you're just going to arrest me when I'm trying to do it legally? You're going to deport me or keep me in a concentration camp for 4 years. So why would I do it legally?
Did it under the protection of the Constitution itself, and that's what we're losing here. You've got ICE agents who do not understand that the central law of this country is the Constitution itself.
And they are fully immune, according to Stephen Miller and Tom Homan. They are fully immune from any crimes that they might commit, as long as they can show that they're trying to do their job or arrest somebody. Insane times we live in, where there's federal masked agents, they can do whatever they want. They're above the law. and they will be deployed to any city that the president wants on the snap of a finger. Pretty scary shit.
ICE has become a tyrannical agency, and I think there is no way to get past that except for to undo the agency and then build from scratch.
Congresswoman, you have been on video saying on social media before about the fine people of ICE. Do you feel differently about that? Do you believe that both can be true, that there needs to be reform, but there are good people working with ICE?
Complaints and slogans aren't solutions, all right? I went up to an ICE detention facility to call out...
Abolish ICE is a solution. What the hell is she talking about?
Clear. Complaints and slogans aren't solutions, all right? I went up to an ICE detention facility to call out and see why people were losing their lives, why they were being held for long periods of time without due process. This has been an outrage. And look, a lot of you remember Abdul from when he first ran for governor in 2018. It didn't work out. So he started the podcast, he wrote the books, and now he's running for Senate. And he's already bought the website for president. You know, it's just another rung on the ladder. That's not what this job is for me. That's not why I'm putting up my hand in this moment. It's not about celebrity. This is about making sure that Mike Rogers...
I don't know why she keeps saying that. Part of being a politician and winning a campaign is being popular and getting more votes than the other person. What the fuck is she talking about? This is a popularity contest at the end of the day. It's, if you want to make it as simple as that, this is a popularity contest. Who is going to be the most popular person come August 4th? Who is the most popular person at that time? They win. I just don't understand why she keeps saying that.
Doesn't get anywhere close to this seat. I'm the only one on this stage who has beat MAGA 4 times and delivered repeatedly for this state and for our values, for our rights and our freedoms. And I promise you, Michigan, I will make us shine.
Dr. Al-Sayed, there are people watching this right now, and every time they hear this podcast business, they're scratching their heads. They're putting food on the table, gas in the tank. They're curious to know what that's about. Have you made a ton of money because of podcasts?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I told all the viewers at the outset that while my opponent was going to make this about me and her, I want to make this about you. Somehow she just really, you can listen to the podcast. It's there. Congresswoman, if you enjoy podcasts about public health, I welcome you to take a listen. You seem very concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the fact that people can't pay for their gas. They can't pay for their groceries. We're fighting a war that's cost us billions of dollars that has been pushed by...
I feel like when you are the one that is attacking your political opponent more, that just tells me as a voter, as just an average citizen, that you have nothing else to say. You have nothing else to talk about. You are cornered at that point. And all you can do is attack your opponent.
Country, the same foreign country that the folks paying for your ads want us to send billions of dollars to. And that's the thing that I think Michiganders really want to understand. They're not that worried about the fact that I hosted a podcast. They're worried about the fact that right now, for a lot of folks, their kids go to schools that are unbecoming of their future. They are worried about the fact that they can't gas up their car because it costs, what, $4.50 a gallon? They're worried about the fact that the same corporations who funded your campaign are raising rates on the things that they can't go without, like their power. So I'd really like us to focus on the things that actually matter, which have nothing to do with the podcast, have everything to do with the future of Michiganders that we would like to serve.
Yeah, but it also is about transparency. And you have not released your full tax returns. $300,000 in other income while you sat in the podcast chair and you hawked junk.
She's complaining about $300,000. Meanwhile, she's gotten $50 million just from AIPAC. This gaslighting is just insane. This is like a Republican type of gaslighting right here.
Healthcare, and you hawked junk healthcare cures that RFK Jr. would thumbs up. You talk about getting money out of politics and putting money in people's pockets, but still no one knows who's putting the money in your pocket. You know.
Well, we know who's putting the money in your pocket, and it's fucking Israel.
I have been transparent, and I am offering, real plans to address the cost of living crisis,
we want to be able
tackle Donald Trump's
and you're talking about what you did, but
I haven't heard a single policy that she's going to pass that's going to help any Michigander. Other than she's going to stick it to DTE. She's really going to stick it to him.
talk about the money and the financial disclosures. You were going to release them today.
Released all of our financial disclosures. Again, this is a distraction from the issues in your life.
But not
I'd love to talk about transparency. I really would. Because I want you to ask yourself, there is this group called the Center for Democratic Priorities. They didn't exist until they popped up and started running ads for my opponent. And then there's this other group called Center Forward that paid for a flight for the Congresswoman and her mother to go to Portugal. And they just released their donors. And then it's a whole bunch of shell 501c4 organizations. They're the folks who are literally putting money in our pockets right now to try and mis and disinform us about this race. And here's the thing about it. None of it actually makes your life better. Think about the $60 million that got spent in this race. What could $60 million do for a community in Detroit? What could $60 million mean for erasing medical debt? I'll tell you. $6 billion it could erase. But they want to spend it to get the Congresswoman elected. Why? Because at the end of the day, they know that they're going to have a safe seat doing their bidding instead of yours. Every single dollar that DTE is spending is a down payment.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be sending her this money if they weren't afraid of Abdul and what Abdul believes in and what he's calling for and what he's running on. You know what I mean? Like, if this wasn't an easy dub, an easy win for Haley Stevens, they wouldn't have poured $50 million into it. They wouldn't have set the record for most money in a Democratic primary. They wouldn't have done that if they weren't afraid of Abdul, because they know his policies are good, popular, they make sense.
On knowing that they can raise your rates. Every single dollar that Blue Cross Blue Shield spends in this race is a down payment on raising your premium.
All right.
Every single dollar.
Thank you, Dr. El-Sayed. I want to ask some more questions from our audience at home right now. You're texting us. I got them right here. The next question is, how will you ensure low-income communities receive equitable and adequate education? You've heard so many people say Michigan ranks 44th when it comes to literacy for fourth graders. Let's start with Congresswoman Haley Stevens. What are you doing now? What do you plan to do should you become senator?
Well, we were robbed by Washington, D.C. and Donald Trump, who treats the Oval Office like a stock trade floor. This is why I want to end the corruption of seeing people who want to be celebrities or get famous or rich in office. I want to ban stock trading. Folks, I'm the only non-millionaire in this.
Baby girl, the president is a celebrity TV host. Like, it doesn't matter. She's running like an early 2000s campaign. It's 2026. The president is a celebrity TV host, actor, WWE guy. If you want to criticize Abdul for having a podcast, okay.
Race. But let me tell you something about what I have worked on and what I am fighting for. Full funding for special education. You know, our public schools here in Michigan are getting the short end of the stick. And if we fully fund special education, we can meet the needs that a family in Royal Oak has talked to me about making sure that their child with special complex medical needs actually gets the education they deserve. This is also why we have to expand Medicaid, not just reinstate the cuts that Donald Trump cut. We have got to expand these programs. And I consider myself a warrior for public education. And this is also why I have written legislation and why I'm leading the charge to redirect grants to go into the profession of education, just like my father was. He was a first grade teacher in the city of Detroit doing reading recovery in addition to running his small business. And so I want to see more people go into that profession, go into our public schools, and that.
Or take it a step further, what I would do is, if you want to be a teacher, your college is now half off. We will actually pay you to do your student teaching or pay you to do your teacher assisting. Or when you graduate with your education degree, you will get a $10,000 bonus to buy a house. Something to incentivize more people to go into education, because right now it's shit. And you're talking to somebody that has an education degree, they went to college for education. I can tell you from firsthand experience, pay your teachers more, incentivize more college students to go to school to get an education degree. Incentivize people to get jobs right out of college. Incentivize people to substitute teach while they're in college. There's so many things that you can do. Maybe get tax breaks if you teach for 6 months or something. I don't know. There's so many things that you can do with the amount of money that we have in this country. Do we want to do all that? No. Project 2025 literally wants to dismantle public education.
You heard the Congresswoman say redirect grant money. Is that part of the solution here? What do you think?
You know, you asked a really important question about education. I'd like to answer that question. I'm proud of the fact that the American Federation of Teachers has endorsed me in this race. And they've done it because I'm a proud product of public schools. I know what it's like to walk into a public school in Detroit in January. And kids are bundled up because the boiler's broken, trying to learn how to read. You talk about a literacy crisis. How do you learn how to read when you have to wear a coat in the middle of the day? We put glasses on kids' faces specifically because we knew that it doesn't matter what's happening on the blackboard if you can't see the blackboard. But we need to radically rethink how we do public education in this country. We are not invested nearly enough. I want to tie the support for public education through the Department of Education, which, by the way, needs not just.
What's interesting as well is public health programs are all connected to education, because when kids are fed, they score better on tests. A lot of kids have learning disabilities and trauma, attention disorders. There's so many things going on with your average child in public school. If you improve the healthcare system, you are directly helping public schools and public school kids. Now they're going to be better in school. They're going to score better in school. They're going to learn better in school. That's what it's all about, man. The kids, man. The kids are the future.
To be brought back, but fully invested in. I want to tie that funding to the Department of Defense. So when they try to raise the Department of Defense budget, we're going to make sure we're invested in public schools too. I also think that the way that we have funded local education, specifically school buildings, has too often ported the historical racism of the past. Right now, we fund school buildings based on property tax. Property tax is a function of property value. Property value is a function of who's been able to live where as a function of redlining from
the quality of your education depends on where you were born and then where you live. Like what house you live in or apartment you live in or trailer park determines the quality of education that you get in this country. And I think that's not fair. That's not equitable.
And when we say that that same process should be patterning the social mobility of the future through public schools, that's a real problem. But I just want to say this. I actually agree with the Congresswoman on one really critical thing. We are being robbed. The money that we should have to invest in our schools is being sent to foreign governments to destroy other people's
Yeah, I mean, we're sending billions to Israel and we're giving billions to ICE. So yeah, we have the money. We always have the money. The money is not the problem. The problem is the people who have the money don't want to use it on that because they're evil or corrupt.
Schools instead of investing in our own. And that is exactly what AIPAC wants you to do and why they're spending so much money to get the Congresswoman.
Dr. Al-Sayed, Congresswoman, it's one point in which at least partially you agree on. As one of you will be taking on Mike Rogers, people want to know, what are the defining differences? This next question comes to us from a young person herself who actually is a student in Detroit, a college student. And we thank you so much, Kimora, for being with us here today. What's your question to the candidates?
Thank you. Good evening, candidates. My name is Kimora Riddick, and I'm a Wayne State University junior studying broadcast journalism. And my question is about the wildfires.
Just another thing that really pisses me off is when Republicans are like, oh, climate change isn't real. The climate always changes. The climate's been changing for millions of years or thousands of years or whatever. I have been living in Michigan since I was like 8 years old. We've never had wildfires. We've never even had bad air quality like we do right now. Never. Okay. This is something new. This is something that has been happening for the past 3 years, maybe 4 years. Doesn't seem to be getting any better. It's getting worse. And there's thousands of kids in this state and states around us in Michigan that have asthma. Yeah, like this is something new that is clearly because of man-made climate change.
What environmental measures are you planning to decrease the dangers of air pollution?
Let's start with Congresswoman Haley Stevens.
Yeah, well, it is so great to have a student from Wayne here. I've just treasured working with that university in their science program and STEM education, and that is very much at the heart of why
Just answer the question. Oh my God.
we need good climate policy, not the junk science that we are getting from the Trump administration. And let me tell you what I think that looks like. One, we've got to cut the carbon emissions. We've got to lessen our dependence on big oil and gas. Investments like I secured in our clean energy future so that from Marquette to Detroit, we were evolving and moving forward. You know, that has been stripped away by Donald Trump, and that's not right. But it's also not enough to just say, hey, we're going to go in there and just fight Trump. We've got to put forward our own creative ideas, which is why for 4 terms I've sat there
Yes, what are your creative ideas? That's kind of like what the question was.
on the science committee, securing resources, looking at alternatives for plastic and our supply
The question was air pollution, and you're talking about plastic.
chain. This is an opportunity for Michigan manufacturing, Michigan innovation to shine. I want to make sure that we are leading the way. And then when Kamara is a broadcast personality, she's talking about the things that we have secured in the United States Senate for Michigan, for our jobs and for our clean energy future.
She didn't answer the question, really.
Dr. Al-Sayed, clean air.
Kamara, just be careful. If you become a broadcast personality, somebody might come after you. I just want to speak specifically to your question. I can tell you about what we've already done. We put air quality monitors all over Wayne County so folks can get real-time information about the air that they're.
That's an actual answer. What are you going to do about the air pollution in Michigan? We're going to put up air quality monitors that will tell you if the air is bad or not. That's an actual answer. It's not a solution. It's not by any means a solution to air pollution, but it at least will let us know, you know.
Breathing. Took on some of the biggest corporate polluters in our state when I was in the city of Detroit. Took on Marathon Petroleum, the biggest polluter and the most polluted zip code in the state, forced them to invest their own money to reduce emissions when they had wanted to increase them. The truth of the matter is that these wildfires are happening more often because it's drier and hotter than it has been in the past. It's drier and hotter because we continue to rely on fossil fuels for our energy. We need to get to 100% renewable energy. And the only way we're going to do that is by taking the Chevrons and the Exxons of the world out of our politics. Now, guess whose campaign they supported? Well, if you guessed my Congresswoman colleague, you probably guessed right, because yes, they have both given to that campaign. So when you hear ideas of things that ought to be done, but they never actually get done, you should ask yourself why it doesn't get done. Well, because the people who sell oil in this country fund the politicians who make sure that they can keep selling oil. We need and deserve guaranteed health care through Medicare for all. I have been thinking about this question. In fact, I've testified to the U.S. Senate twice. This wouldn't be my first time walking into the chamber. On Medicare for all, guaranteeing health care, on eliminating the medical debt in this country, $225 billion. Now, on Medicare for all, there is work that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to get a president elected who can do it in 20.
You know what would be really cool is if the next president just comes in and says, everybody's medical debt is gone. Everybody's student loan debt is gone. That would change the lives of just millions of people.
29. Now, in the process, though, I actually think that we could eliminate all the medical debt in this country, $225 billion. Just so you understand what that is. That is the amount of the GDP of more than half of U.S. states in this country. So on day one, I want to offer medical debt relief to everybody. I think we could get bipartisan support to do it, and I'd love.
That's only a quarter of the Pentagon's budget, by the way. $225 billion, yeah.
Love to get that done. And let's start working through Medicare for all. And then let's make sure that we can get money out of politics so the big pharmas and the big insurances of the world aren't in the way when it comes down to finally getting this done for all Americans.
Congresswoman, in a minute and a half, tell us what you do on your first day in office.
Yeah, Day one, we have to stand up to the abuses of power. Take it from somebody who has been recognized as our most effective lawmaker. When I tell you I'm going to go to the United States Senate and ban stock trading for elected officials, their spouses, their children, for our president.
Unfortunately, though, that doesn't really help your average American. I mean, it bans like corrupt people, right? Like it'll end some corruption in the Senate and the Congress and hopefully the president, but it doesn't really help your average American. It's a good idea. It wouldn't be the first thing that I did, though.
And our vice president and for